Download the AllStar app. Make your picks for UFC fights, challenge your friends, level up and win prizes. Link in description. Get it now.
You returned, man, on the first UFC card of 2024, and you've been away for around 9 to 10 months. You took a break, some time away. What did you spend your time on during that break?
Just kind of getting my own life back in order. Um, I own a gym in Jacksonville, Florida, so coaching at the gym. I went on a trip with I forget the exact name, but it was a training the troops. So I got to visit different countries. I went to Honduras. I went to Cuba. I went to I went to Greenland of all places. So just kind of getting my own life in order. That last fight should have. I trained as hard as I could leading up to the fight, but I made some mistakes during the fight that kind of costed me the win. So that it's not really bothering me anymore, but still, I just kind of getting my own life in order. I live by myself in my apartment, so little things, cleaning the dishes, keeping the place clean, keeping the gym in order, making sure we're getting more signups, making sure that I'm coaching all the other fighters that I have fighting out of my gym.
Yeah, that work training balance, man. That's tough to do, right?
It is. It's very tough. And then also, again, I have 10 to 12 fighters actively fighting out of my gym, some amateur, some pro. So I'm playing manager for a lot of these guys as well. So that kind of that takes a lot of time.
Yeah. Who else is doing a similar thing? Trey Ogden. He's kind of a similar to you. He has his own team, he has his own gym. He's actually the coach and he's the fighter in the UFC at the same time. It's pretty hectic, man.
It is. But this coming year, I'm glad that I'm starting the year off right, and I'm fighting on the first card of the year. I plan on having 4 fights this year, and I'm planning on this being my year, and by the end of it, having a number next to my name.
And going back to what you were talking about, like going to Greenland and doing the training, was it training for the troops? Was this something for the UFC?
No, it was put together by Lex McMahon, and he's the owner of Titan FC, and I've known him for a while because I used to fight for Titan FC. And it was just kind of training the military, training Marines, Navy, Army, and just teaching them jujitsu and stuff.
Man, it must be like a real reality check visiting the troops, because like us, we're so far away from all of that stuff. We're like kind of like desensitized in some ways to that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've never been out of the country before that, and then just kind of going, especially Honduras. We got to stay right in the middle of the city, so it was a culture shock for me, and it was definitely like a great experience. So it was really good for me, and also I got to hang around good people like Jose Torres, Jessica Penne. I got to hang out with Charles Rosa. I made some new friends out there, some good lifelong friends.
Now going to the fight coming up, man, you got your original opponent, Basil Hafez. He pulls out. I mean, how did that cancellation affect you?
It didn't really affect me mentally that much. I kind of like this matchup better fighting Matt Semelsberger. Bassel was more of a grappler, strong guy. Semelsberger's definitely got a hard right hand that we're definitely preparing for. Um, so mentally, it doesn't matter to me. It's the UFC. I'm going to fight who they put in front of me. I want to be the champion one day. I'm not in this just to win a few fights. I'm in this to beat the tough best guys because I believe that I am the best guy, and that may not have shown that yet, but I'm growing. I'm only 28 years old, so I plan on being the UFC welterweight champion one day. So um, I don't care who they give me the fight. It doesn't really change my mindset. Obviously, it'll change the game plan a little bit, but it doesn't affect me mentally.
There seem to be so many pullouts in the UFC nowadays. Do you feel like it's just part of the sport, or
I focus on myself always. I do. I am seeing that trend, like you said, people pulling out of fights, and these are big fights. It's the UFC. I've never pulled out of a fight, whether it be amateur, regional, definitely not the UFC. So I'm not sure. I know injuries happen. I know when you're hard into a training camp, your immune system drops when you're training as hard as you need to be to prepare for these level of fights. So I know that comes into play. I know you're training hard, you're sparring, so cuts happen, injuries happen, stuff like that. So I understand why there is pullouts, but at the same time, got to train smart, especially at this level. Being in the UFC, I want to stick around, and I don't think they're going to keep me around if I kept pulling out of fights.
Semelsberger, man, what do you think of his fighting style? I know you look at him more of a striker.
As a fan, I like his style. I think he's a little reckless. I like the fact that he's very aggressive. I like he's got a hard straight right. He's knocking guys out. He's got some fast finishes. Um, so as a fan, I like him. I think he's a good fighter. When I'm studying to fight him, I think it's a good matchup for me because I think I can time that right hand. I think I can time a counter shot off of it. I think that as far as technically speaking, I think I'm a better fighter. I know he's got his past football experience and his past stuff that he's done. He's very athletic and everything else, but so am I. I'm an athlete. We're all athletes here in the UFC. But as far as skill goes, I think I'm more skilled standing. I'm a more skilled boxer. I may not have shown that as much as he has, but he definitely has a good right hand. But as far as skill goes, I think I'm a more skilled boxer. I'm a more skilled kickboxer. I have definitely more skill on the ground. I have more skill when it comes to wrestling. And when I can put it all together, that's when I'm the most dangerous.
When you watch Semelsberger fight, do you see like him having actually a game plan entering the fight, or do you just see him just like free flowing? Because it just seems like he's free flowing, man. Fight of the night contenders all the time.
No, exactly. No, I don't think he may, but that's for a lot of fighters. The game plan kind of goes out the window because the fighters are studying you as well, so they know what to look out for. Most fighters have coaches that analyze them, so they know what the opponent's going to be looking at and looking for, so they adjust to that. So every time we get into the cage, it's adjust or adapt, overcome. So I think that he doesn't really go in there with too much of a game plan, and if he does, I think it goes out the window after the first 10 seconds, and then he just starts trying to look for that laser right hand that he's got because he does have a good right hand, and it is exciting, and he does knock people out.
You mentioned earlier about timing the counters and things like that. So the recklessness, it plays into your favor.
Yes, I think so. That's one thing I've done well in the past, just timing guys on their punches, especially in sparring. Like I'm a very good counter puncher, as my boxing coach Nate Campbell used to say. I'm an aggressive counter striker. So I counter strike and then I follow up after that. I've been working a lot of different stuff with my new boxing coach, Gene Batista. I have a real MMA coach, Professor Roberto Cortero. I have the best training partners you could ask for, Trey Waters, Corey Taylor, and all Roberto, Corey, and Trey are all three going to be in my corner for this fight. And they've been with me throughout this whole process for the training camp. Jacksonville's kind of come up a little bit in the MMA scene. We have me in the UFC, we have Ramon Tavares, we have Steven Kozlow, we have Trey Waters, we have Austin Lane. And what's cool about it is I've known these guys for years. We've trained together for 14, 15 years. I went to school with half these guys. Me and Trey went to middle school, high school. We played Pop Warner together when I was 12 years old. And it's cool to see that we all had that same dream and we're all making our dreams come true. And we're doing it together.
Yeah, that's a trip, man. You know somebody since middle school, and you guys are in the UFC,
That's right. Yes,
together.
exactly.
You know what I mean? You guys are in the pros together. It's just like you guys got to see each other pretty much grow up, raise each other in some ways, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And he's always been a cool guy. Like he hasn't changed too much. He's good guy, good Christian. He kind of very grounded. Uh, I'm talking about Trey, and he's just been one of my main training partners because he's one of those guys that me and me and him have fought in the gym multiple times, and there's never any emotions involved. But me and him have gone at it, and he's the one that gives me my confidence going into my fights because every one of my fights that I've done my best are the ones where I felt like I just had a round with Trey. I just pushed myself to the absolute limit that I have. So I'm very grateful for him specifically and all my training partners.
Yeah, it seems like for your training camps, you kind of bring in, a small core, right? And you work with that small core. It seems like that's kind of like the trend nowadays, more than just like, oh, I'm just gonna go to practice and I'm just gonna get ready for the fight this way.
Yes, yeah, I'd like to keep like kind of a close, tight knit group of guys that they have my interest in mind. They know that I have their interest in mind as well because we're all doing this together. Like we have a good team at Elevate MMA and Gracie Baja Jacksonville, and we work together. We cross train together. Their guys come to my gym. I go to their gym. So we've created something special in Jacksonville. And again, there was no UFC fighters in Jacksonville 2 years ago, and I'm very proud to say that I was the first one from Jacksonville to make it to the UFC. And I know those other guys were right behind me either way, but again, I'm very proud to be the first one from Jacksonville to make it there.
Maybe you could, you and your network of gyms and fighters could turn Jacksonville into a fight city rather than a football city. Because I know it's Jacksonville's football city, right?
That's right, Jacksonville Jaguars, baby.
Yeah. Let's talk about your last fight, man. You mentioned earlier about some of the mistakes that you made. Could you reveal that? Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Honestly, I'm not disappointed with that fight. I liked that fight. It went to decision. It was a split decision. I left everything I had out there. And what I mean as far as making the wrong choices at the right time, all three judges gave me the first round. I definitely lost the second round. Sal D'Amato gave me the third round, and the other two judges gave it to Trevin. Um, if you watch that fight, the first 3 minutes of the last round, I was definitely putting it on Trevin. I was pressuring him. I was taking him down. I was catching him with punches. And then with 90 seconds left in the fight, I'm on top. I decide right next to the cage. It goes against my all my coaching and all my everything professors taught me to do. But also, I've had fans write me on Instagram. People write me thanking me for the way I fight. Like I'm a finisher. I like to finish fights. I don't like letting it go to decision. I like to be exciting. I hear the crowd when I'm out there fighting. So when they're chanting, it makes me push harder and harder and harder. So with that being said, there was 90 seconds left in the fight. I'm in half guard. I should have just sat there and coasted. I should have sat on top. I should have just kept throwing little shots, won the round. But I wanted to finish. So I step over to mount, go for the head arm choke. He bridges off the cage. I try to go for an armbar. Gets me on my back. I'm throwing up triangles and arm bars off my back, but I finished the last 90 seconds of the fight from my back, which doesn't look good. But that was one of the mistakes I made, and that's something I have to live with. It cost me half of my purse, and this is fighting is the way I make a living. So those are just something I had to live with and something I have to learn from.
Trevin has a way of winning close fights for some reason. I think it's just the way he looks. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's just if you look back at his record, like he's just
Yeah,
won like split decisions or just controversial decisions in the past many times.
right.
Is it
Well,
true?
also it was.
Did you think about that heading into the fight?
Yes, I saw that, but my intentions were to get him out of there in the first round. So I wanted to finish that fight, but obviously I didn't. And also that fight was in Texas, where he's from. Not again, I'm giving no excuses. You can look at the punch count. He definitely outlanded on me and stuff like that, and my face was pretty busted up. The mistake I made was the old Donald Cerrone mistake, is I blew my nose in between rounds, and then my eye swelled up like crazy. But I looked way worse than I felt, and I definitely looked like I got beat up, but I wasn't feeling that bad.
Yeah, they're probably like, don't blow your nose, right? Like,
Right.
what can
Well,
you do, man? You're in the
yeah,
middle of a fight,
exactly. You're in the middle of a fight. If my nose is stuffy, I'm trying to breathe the best I can, so I'm pushing all that snot out that I can. And also leading into that fight, I had a little bit of a cold the week prior, so I think it was just my nose was running that whole week before the fight. So, and then during the fight, I was blowing my nose after I got punched. I got jabbed in there 100 times, so that's why it started to flare up like it did.
Coming off of that close fight, man, and you did show a lot because Trevin Giles is like a really solid veteran, right? Like if you can fight him and compete with him, that means you're that level. What are your expectations coming into this fight against Semelsberger?
I think that I think I'm gonna do just fine. I definitely, like I said earlier, I believe that I'm championship material. I believe in myself. I surround myself with people that believe in me. Um, I have the Lord on my side. I think that I'm going to do just fine. I think that win, lose, draw, I'm going to fight to the best of my abilities, and that's what I always pray for. Obviously, I want to win, but I just pray to please let me do the best that I possibly can. Let me be at my best, and I think that I'm going to be on January 13th next week.
And this is the last fight on your original UFC contract. And we've seen fighters, fight out their contracts. It's a normal thing. It's not like, oh, like something crazy. And last year we saw Mike Breeden. He was fighting out his contract, and you saw like the dog come out of him. Did you see that fight where
Yeah,
Mike Breeder
yeah,
just came back after the first round? You know what I mean? Like
yep.
I could see that happening to a lot of fighters where they're like, oh, that's in their mind. Is that in your mind?
Yes,
This last
absolutely,
fight of yours?
100%. And I've said that to a lot of different people. Being realistic and looking at this realistically, I'm 1-2 in the UFC now. I took that first fight with D-Rod on a short notice. No excuses to that one either. And I had just fought 3 weeks before I fought D-Rod, and then I got the short notice call, and I'm not saying no to that. It's the UFC. And then I had a full camp for when I fought Elder. But also, the Elder fight, that was the guy I was originally supposed to fight got COVID and pulled out, so that was a short notice fight for Elder. And I had a choice between a 7-1 guy or a 7-0 guy, which was Elder, and I picked the guy that was undefeated. So that just shows you that I'm willing to fight the top level guys, because again, I want to fight for the championship one day, and I believe I have what it takes to be the UFC champion. But with that being said, too, this being the last fight in my contract, being realistic, if I don't win this fight, I don't know if they're going to re-sign me. So there is that extra motivation to really go out there and push.
Yeah, that extra violence. Yeah, I don't know, man, because it seems like fighters they kind of they find something inside them. You know what I mean? That like extra level
Right,
inside them
like that
somehow, and
second
it only
win.
happens in the fight. It only happens in the fight.
Yes, no, I 100% agree, and I've felt that before. And best believe if I'm down on the scorecards and I know that, and there's not much time left in the fight, that's going to come into my mind, and I'm gonna be going balls to the wall. I'm looking to finish this fight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. One last thing. Trash talking has been a big topic as of late with like, Colby Covington and Sean Strickland,
Shout out my
all these guys, right? They're just talking trash. Is there a line in your eyes like you cannot cross with trash talking?
Yes, in my opinion. I'm not much of a trash talker myself. I've never been huge on confrontation. Um, for me, even back in school, like if the guys would mess with me and stuff like that, I wasn't very good at trash talking back. It was just once they reached a certain point, it's stand up, we're fighting. I've just never been one to go back and forth with the F you, no F you, no F you. So I've more so just once it gets to a certain point, I'd rather just fight about it. But I do believe that you should leave people's families out of it, especially their wives and their kids. I believe that you should leave religion out of it. I think there is a line when it comes to talking trash, and that whole Connor and Khabib thing really proved that.
Oh yeah, man, that was hectic, man. That was
Yeah,
really hectic. It was kind of, you know,
but trash talk doesn't
it was
get to me.
sad to watch.
I fought Mike Perry back in 2015, and he said everything under everything you
What
could
did he
think of.
say, man? What?
Like,
Give us
he
an
called me every
example.
name in the book, Pussy Parsons. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here, but he
Yeah, yeah.
said I had a bird chest. He said a bunch of different things that were actually kind of funny, and again, none of that stuff really affects me. It doesn't get in my head. It doesn't really bother me. I don't really care. But there's just again, I'm not much of a trash talker myself. I'll respond to it, but I'm not going to go out of my way to sit there and bash somebody.
Well, you're staying true to yourself, man. That's your character, man.
Right.
It's
We
just,
all have the same goal. We're all in the sport to be the best, So um, I always have respect for my opponents and respect for their dream as well. But they're trying to take that away from me. So it's you or me. I'm choosing me. I'm winning this fight.
yeah, 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 for sure, man. Looking forward to it, man. January 13th, UFC Fight Night in Las Vegas. Preston, man, thank you so much, man, for taking the time, and all the best, man, and in unlocking something inside of you in your next fight.
Yes, sir. And I will. And thank you for having me.